a parent was asking for tips about helping her child who's pressing really hard when writing. And that, I think a lot of us run into that. Melody, do you have any experience with that happening when your kids were in school?
Not my own kids, probably because I was watching for it at the beginning, because I know that when a child is gripping the pencil so hard that it makes their arm tired, or if they're pressing so hard that the pages underneath have the dents from, the top page, that over time that just sets them up for such stress in writing, because they're working so hard and it needs to be easier. So I was watching for that. But I know that in the classroom I had children that were so tense, or they were just working so hard and mashing, they would break the pencil lids. And there were several things that we would do. Among those was, like, first of all, watch out for the pencil grip to watch out that they weren't, doing like what do we call it, like the caveman hold on the pencil, but that they were actually, pinching the pencil and moving their arm around, and we would, do some exercises to shake their arms around and limber up. But I know there were some really good ideas on that thread that you should mention.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of them, which I thought was really helpful, and I probably could have used this help when my kids were younger. I had some that were real tight pencil grippers, was to let your child write on carbon paper.
Oh,
so the child has to write softly, so the marks barely go through the paper.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. What's one that you?
Well, one thing we did was that I would let them use felt tip markers, because it doesn't take a lot of pressure to get a big result. Mm-hmm. And of course, we had to have chats. I didn't want the markers to be mashed into smithereens, and so they learned to do like a light grip on that, because they got a lot of bang for their buck with the markers. But we also just did some, we worked with Play-Doh and clay and other fine motor to develop those fine motor muscle abilities for them. Mm-hmm. I know that some kids are not getting the feedback from I had one child, this is a little bit different, but didn't like the way the pencil felt scratching on the paper. Mm-hmm. So there was a sensory aspect to that. And so for him, he wrote very lightly, but I think there's an element of that there too for the children who are pressing down so hard. They're not getting feedback that they need.
And another interesting comment that was made on this thread was that someone else's occupational therapist was telling her that her son should wear a weighted vest or put a weighted blanket. And the reason is that it's a occupational therapy technique called deep touch pressure therapy that can increase the release of serotonin in the brain. This lady said her son's ADHD and he needs more sensory input. And we do have a learning challenges series that we're going to be expanding on. And so ADHD and anxiety, things like that, can often show up in things such as how a child is writing and the pressure they're putting. So we're going to be touching more on that in future episodes in our Learning Challenge series.
I love that idea about the weighted blanket or the vest, because you don't often, that's not the first thing you think about when you're looking at someone's handwriting.
Right. Some other suggestions, quite a few of them, were to have the child use a mechanical pencil, because with too much pressure, the graphite will snap off. Mm-hmm. And it's a good way to help kids to learn to write gently.
My kids loved mechanical. We called them click pencils because they click. That's what they called them. And so that was really helpful, because they do just break off if you're pressing too hard.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Holly.
I'm Melody. Happy homeschooling.
Hi, this is your host, Holly Williams Urbach. Thank you for listening to the Happy Homeschooler Podcast, a Transcript Maker Production. My co-host is Melody Gillum. This episode was produced by Matthew Bass and edited by Norah Williams. Our graphic design is by Pete Soloway, and our music is by the Great Pangolin. You can find her music on YouTube and Twitter at Kylie Wins. That's Kailey Wins. If you'd like to help our podcast grow, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. Or as always, tell people about us.